Hello and welcome to the No Easy Way Out podcast. My name is Tony Nash, and we are broadcasting, as always, from the Armory in beautiful downtown Owasso, Michigan, home to my company, AZ Business Solutions, where we help grow your brand from A to Z. On today's episode, we are going to be discussing the topic of passion. Now, I think back to the time when I decided, or when I started thinking about starting my own company. And I remember thinking to myself, as you hear a lot of people talk about pursuing your passion, I started to think about, what am I really passionate about? What do I really want to pursue? I had a job that I enjoyed, but it was taking up a lot of my time, and it was taking me away from a lot of things that I wanted to do. And so as I started to think about how could I start my own business, of course, the first thing I thought about is, Tony, what are you passionate about? And I started to think about my skills. I over the years at my different jobs, I learned how to build a website. I learned how to do graphic design. These were things that I enjoyed because I think of myself as a creative person. I learned how to create content and manage social media, as the jobs that I had required me to wear many hats because we didn't have a marketing department. So I learned these things. But if I was honest with myself, I wasn't really passionate about building a website or passionate about designing a logo for somebody, or I didn't have any passion about creating amazing content for social media. These were just things that I knew how to do. And so as I went through the process, I started to learn that really what I was passionate about, really what I wanted out of life, is I wanted to be able to be a present dad. I want to be able to spend time with my family. The jobs that I had really kind of prohibited me from spending the amount of time with my family. Of course, those who know me know that I have 6 children, and so I wanted to be there for them. And the jobs that I had caused me to miss out on so many things. I missed first steps and first words, and I missed ball games, and I missed plays, and I didn't like that. And so one of the things I was passionate about was being able to be in control of my time. Another thing that I was really passionate about is I wanted to be involved in my church. For the first 7 years of my professional career, I was an associate pastor, and then I was a youth pastor, and I always had a passion for ministry and for helping people learn about God and learn about their journey. And so the current job that I had was really pulling me away from my church, and I found I wasn't being able to be involved in the things that I wanted to be involved in. And so I was really passionate about having the time to do these things that was really in my heart to do, the things that I really felt fulfill my purpose. And so I thought, can building a website, can managing social media, can building a logo or helping somebody grow their brand, can doing those things allow me to pursue these things that I'm passionate about? And what I found is that doing those things has allowed me to be able to start my company and has allowed me to be able to pursue those things that I am passionate about. And a lot of times when people think about pursuing their passion, they think that the very thing that they're passionate about has to be the thing that generates income. And of course, there are times where that is the case. But in my case, the things that I've learned over the years, the skills that I've developed, are the things that really bring in enough money for me to take care of my family and afford me the ability to be able to pursue these other passions that I really have. And so to me, that's where success lies, is being able to do the things that I'm passionate about. And so today, fast forward, I'm very present with my family. I coach multiple sports teams. I'm involved in their athletics and their academics. We get to go on family trips and weekend trips and vacations that we never got to do before. I'm very involved in my church. I teach a Sunday school class of college-age students. I'm involved in our live broadcasting, our social media at the church. I get to go on missions trips and camps and different things. And so I'm very involved in those things, and I get to do those things along with my family because I found a way to make money doing things that I knew how to do and things that I enjoy, not necessarily those being my passion, but they've allowed me to pursue my passion. And so when I think about passion, when I think about somebody that's passionate about what they do or passionate about the things that they do for their clients, I think of our guest today, Jordan Noble with B Noble Photography. Jordan, welcome to the show today.
Hi, thank you, Tony.
Jordan, it's great to have you. Now, the first time I met Jordan she was referred to me from another photographer who I had scheduled to do a product shot for one of our clients, and he was unavailable. And I said, it was kind of a last minute. I said, do you have anyone you recommend? And he said, highly recommend Jordan Noble. And I talked to her, and she had never done a lot of product photography, so she was a little nervous about it, but she spent a ton of time researching it, and let me tell you, the end result was absolutely amazing. I mean, she just did a fantastic job. And so we utilize her all the time here now at AZ Business Solutions when we have clients that have photography needs. But and we'll talk a little bit more about what you're passionate about. But from the first time I met her, she began to describe why she does what she does, and she started to talk about her passion for marriage, really. And I'll let her get a little bit more into that and why she does what she does. But her passion for life, her passion for what she does, her enthusiasm really spoke to me, inspired me, and that's why I wanted to have her on today. And so I'll let her tell her story. But Jordan, let's get started today by letting you tell our audience a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Sure. Well, thank you very much, firstly. So I am a entrepreneur, just like yourself. I currently only have myself in the business. I don't have other employees. I've been doing photography for about the past decade, but I've been doing it full time for the past 2 years, and I really enjoy it. It's nice, like you said, some things you're passionate about, but you don't actually get to do it as a full-time job. In my case, that is the case, for which I'm very thankful. But I've been a Michigan native my whole life. I am about 2 weeks away from my 3rd-year anniversary of being married. And
congratulations.
Thank you. And yes, I love the outdoors, and I don't know, all sorts of stuff.
And like I said, I mean, you can tell already, Jordan has a passion for life. I mean, she's just happy. She's full of gratitude, and so she's very fun to be around, and she always brings with her a positive attitude and a positive spirit.
None of those are true of me in the morning, though. If you get me,
well, I haven't been around you in the morning, so yeah, most of ours has been in the afternoon, so
there
that's
you go.
good.
Thing.
So, Jordan, tell our audience who is your client.
So I have a variety of clients, and they all differ from one another. A couple of my primary clients, interestingly, are actually Michigan State and U of M Flint. I do brand and strategy, marketing type photography for them. Of course, you're one of my clients, but on a more general, broad scale, newly engaged couples, local couples particularly, are a client that I love to work with for those weddings, and then families and small businesses for additional marketing work.
Okay. And really, Jordan does a variety of photography, and I've never seen an end product photo that she's delivered that wasn't absolutely amazing. They really, most of them belong in a magazine. She does really, really good work. And so we've been happy to partner with her, and our clients that we deliver the product to are just blown away every time. And so she's really good at what she does.
I appreciate that.
Jordan, what do you want people to know, or what do you want people to think of when they think Jordan Noble?
So this is a really interesting question, and it's one that I've been putting a ton of thought into for about the past 6 months, because I've been completely revamping my brand and trying to actually be able to answer that on that first impression, like the first few seconds of someone knowing who you are and what your business is. And I don't have it entirely figured out, but I know that the few...
Takes a little time.
Yes, it's still a work in progress, but I know that a few of the main things, my faith is extremely important to me, and while I'm not going to shove that down your throat while we're doing a photo shoot, I do want the character traits that are important in that part of my life to be expressed through the work that I do, and my desire to strive for excellence and to be compassionate and to be vulnerable. That's one that I think we're really lacking in today with all of our social media and blah. So I just want to be authentic and have that authenticity come out in my work.
Yeah, and I think those qualities really stand out today because, like you said, people go on social media and it's all a highlight reel. There's very, very much a hesitation for people to be vulnerable because they don't want to show any kind of weakness. But sometimes it's okay to show that when that's the right thing, and that's what is prescribed for that moment. All right, so now we're going to get a little bit more into you and your business and your passion that we talked about. And so obviously we discussed already that you're a photographer, and you've studied all different kinds of photography, and you've done all different kinds of photography. But what was it that first drew you to photography? How old were you when you started thinking about it, and what was it that drew you to that particular field?
Well, I grew up doing art my entire life. My mom is a professional artist, and so I was exposed to lots of creativity and lots of just visual, I don't know how to say it, lots of creativity, and just a desire to express myself and understand aesthetics. And I would say the first time that I realized photography was something that was important to me was when I temporarily borrowed my parents' film camera to take a picture of my American Girl doll when I was about 8 or 9. And I was forbidden to use the camera unless I had asked permission. So the fact that there was such a sense of urgency to get this picture maybe signaled my parents that I was weird or something.
You had the touch.
Something like that. I mean, I still have the pictures. They're
Yeah.
pretty decent for an 8 or 9-year-old.
Yeah.
But so shortly thereafter, they gifted me a camera, and it was like a natural fit. I realized that for enjoying art, that was my medium.
So you've been doing photography for a while then. I mean,
Yes.
professionally maybe not, but you've been shooting photos. It's always been something you've been interested in. And that's really cool. I really would like to see those early photos show up on your Instagram page at some time. I think that would be cool.
Yes. If I had better control over my social media and was a little bit more consistent, I would love to throw in some oldies but goodies and even some baddies.
Yeah. So you were doing photography for a long time, but when you decided, I want to do this professionally, I want to make this a job, I want to do this for a living, what kind of training did you pursue in order to be able to feel like you could do it professionally?
Sure. So like you said, yes, I started taking pictures when I was about 10, but the first paid job that I did someone's senior pictures when I was 15. And I did not feel prepared. Looking back, I'm mortified by the product. It was tolerable, but not impressive by any means.
And how did they feel about it?
They were very pleased, which I am so thankful for.
At the end of the day, that's all that really matters, right?
Yes, but
We're our own worst critic.
Yes, that's what I was getting ready to say. I thought differently, but that's okay. So after that, though, and even during that time, I do want to clarify that from the age of about 10 to 15 and even beyond, I actually, I was homeschooled until I was in 11th grade. Mm-hmm. So through my 10th grade, I was homeschooled, and my mom had always really trained us to pursue something we were interested in. So if we were curious about something, we should take that upon ourselves and just try to figure out as many answers as possible and use whatever resources we could. And I think that curiosity is possibly what led me to want to become a journalist, because I am a trained photojournalist. And so throughout those years, I read every single book in the library in our area about photography, and I trained myself of how to use manual settings. I started practicing that. I implemented everything I was learning. I studied other people's work. And so by the time that I was in public school, my 11th and 12th grade year, I was fully prepared. I was on yearbook. I was the editor of the yearbook, and I continued trying to investigate as much as I could to learn more about it. And then I entered college, and I got my bachelor's, my master's from MSU in photojournalism. So then I paid a lot of money to get an education.
Sure, absolutely. So, I mean, seeing something that you love to do, and it's amazing how many things you can learn today online and studying other people's work and learning things, but then going on to college and really figuring out what it was going to take to do this, and to be able to have the confidence to charge a price. You know, as creatives, I think we always struggle with, how much do I charge? You know, and that can always depend on where you're located. It can depend on what kind of photography you're doing and what are your competitors charging. But when you've had the training and you've really done what's necessary to perfect your craft, or continuing to perfect your craft, and knowing that you're delivering a quality product, it gives you the confidence to be able to charge what you're worth. And I think people are willing to pay it. Okay, so now that we kind of have an understanding of why you do what you do and why you love it and what you love most about it, and I think as people listen to you, they can hear the passion in your voice. It's not hard to see. If you're watching this, you can see it in her eyes. If you're listening to this, you can see it. You can hear it in her voice. So why do you think it's so important that somebody pursue something that they're passionate about?
Ultimately, I think that if you are not passionate about something, and like you said, it doesn't have to be your work, but just something, then that is a really big flag. Yeah. I think we are all created with something that we were made to be passionate about. And if we aren't prioritizing that, or creating opportunity for that, or even just taking the plunge and deciding to pursue that, then that should be a really good indicator that something's not right. Whether it's you're not doing something you were made to do, or you just aren't arranging your schedule to accommodate that.
General apathy in your life. Absolutely.
Yes.
I agree 100%. So it seems today with smartphones that have amazing cameras on them for a smartphone, with Instagram filters and Snapchat filters, everybody considers themselves a photographer. I read something recently that the average person today looks at 300 to 500 pictures a week. Whereas, 10 years ago, before social media, you only looked at photos in a photo album or a magazine, or, maybe but people look at pictures all the time. So everyone's a photo critic and everyone's a photographer. Mm-hmm. Everyone's hashtagging photo shoot, and so what do you think it is that sets you apart from just the, average everyday person that takes pictures?
This is something that we even studied when I was in college, because some high-profile journalists are even using iPhones to do their work. And that's extremely confusing for me, and I know that some people are okay with it, and that's fine. I am of the mindset that you should be using some very high-quality gear, and that's because of two things. One, it's the potential of the image. There's only so much you can do with a JPEG from an iPhone.
Right.
And so you need that quality, and then also just the longevity. Like, I think that a better image has longer shelf life, essentially, and I'm of the mindset that you're doing this for hopefully future generations, and like you said, leaving a legacy. So I don't want to do something that could be more temporary or of lesser quality. And then regarding how I am set apart, I think gear aside and technical,
abilities.
Yes, aside. Well, not so much technical abilities, more so the mental capacity to do the job that you need to do. Weddings are extremely, and this applies to all events. I do more events than just weddings, but weddings are very fast-paced, and you essentially have to anticipate what's going to happen before it's going to happen so that you're prepared.
Right.
And anybody with an iPhone can be there, but not everybody is prepared and poised to do the task at hand and make sure they do it well. And I've been in so many situations where, thankfully, because of my training, I was able to adapt or come up with a plan B because something didn't go as we had scheduled or whatnot. And it's that preparation and that poise, regardless of what changes in the situation, that is what sets me apart from the average iPhone user.
Sure.
Or
I can only imagine if you showed up to shoot a wedding with a couple of iPhones in hand and just be like, I'm ready to go. I'm sure the bride would be a little mortified.
Yes.
But that brings me to another point is we work with clients all the time that own businesses, and they want to shoot pictures of their products. And it's amazing to me how many people are just taking pictures with their phones, and some of them not even high quality phones. I mean, some of the newer phones can shoot good pictures for the purpose of social media, not necessarily for print. But it's amazing to me how people put their products out there and take no regard for what it might look like, especially considering what I said earlier, that people look at 300 to 500 pictures a week. So now people have an eye for good photography versus bad photography. So would you say to a business owner that's wanting to put their products out there for the world to see, would you say that there is a much better chance of people being visually stimulated by their products by using professional photography rather than just using their iPhone or their Samsung or whatever it is that they have available to them?
Yes, I do agree with that. And that's not just because I want the job.
Sure. No, I mean, but the proof is there. I mean, if you go
Yes.
look at, if you go, and not to cut you off, but if you
Sure.
go look at we will take Johnny V's, for example, as a client, one of ours, Johnny V's Barbecue is one of a local restaurant chain here, and Jordan has taken many pictures for them. And if you go look at their product shots versus somebody that took the same type of shots, or maybe look at their stuff a year ago when they were maybe just shooting with an iPhone, and look at the difference in the imagery and the visual stimulation that you get from that. It's amazing, the difference. And I think they have said wholeheartedly, like, we're never shooting anything but professional photography again. So I think that's something that people need to really consider. If you're watching this today and you own a business, either invest in a good camera, but probably even a better idea is find a good photographer that knows what they're doing. It's more affordable than you think. So you've been doing this now for a long time, and you said full-time for 2 years, but you've been doing it part-time for a while. Has there ever been a time where you really seriously considered hanging up the camera and giving it up?
No, not permanently. I have never imagined myself not being a photographer. Actually, the only situation in which is if for some reason I went blind. I was
That
trying
would
to
make it kind of hard.
I would
Yeah.
make it kind of hard to be a photographer. But even then, I'm like, you know what? I would survive, and I would figure out how to still have that passion, but express it in a different way. So no, as long as I have my eyes and they function well, I'm going to be a photographer. But I just try to limit that so that I have boundaries and I don't burn myself out, because that's really easy to do.
Right, and I think a good takeaway there is it's not that you don't have difficult days or you don't have a project where you're like, man, it only took me 2 hours to shoot this, and it took me 8 hours to edit it all, and staying up late. I mean, those are difficult things, even when you are passionate about it. But I think a takeaway there is when you are passionate about something, when you're doing something that you love, you don't even consider quitting because you enjoy it that much. But then that leads me to the next question is, why do you think so many people give up or fail? I mean, a lot of businesses fail. I read recently, and I mentioned this on another episode, that 80% of independent businesses fail. Now, that seems high to me, but why do you think people give up or fail?
I think this comes down to two things. And I could be wrong, but this is just my opinion. I think it comes down to fear, and I think it comes down to laziness. Mm-hmm. If you have the courage to work past any fear that could be holding you back, you can do it. If you have the discipline to work past any laziness that could be holding you back, you have the ability to do it. And I don't think that once you get past those two things, there's anything left that could make you not succeed.
Great answer.
Thank
Honestly,
you.
that was a very good answer. So we talk about people that give up. They've started to pursue it, but they give up. But a lot of people never even pursue their passion. Why do you think it is? What do you think holds people back from pursuing their passion at all?
Sure. I think it's the same things ultimately, but I remember when you were talking about starting this podcast, how you were talking about your internal dialogue and just absorbing what people were saying. Mm-hmm. And I can think of multiple projects that I have in mind as well that I'm already premeditatively considering what people will say about it, right, and how they're going to respond. And I'm going back to the love languages. Verbal affirmation is a huge deal for me.
Sure.
So if people tell me good job, it means a ton. If people say not so good of a job, or you really shouldn't do that. Absolutely, on a really, really intrinsic level. So doing something that could be criticized is such a risk. And I heard a quote the other day that it just seared into me, and I haven't stopped thinking about it, and I'm kind of using that as a little, I don't know, not a motto, but something. And it's better to create something and be criticized than it is to create nothing and criticize others. And I said, oh my goodness, that's a great idea. Because I want to be someone who creates. That's important to me. And I need to let go of the need to not be criticized, because ultimately I don't really care what people think. Yeah. I mean, I do, but I'm trying not to.
Yeah. It's like a mantra you're telling yourself. Yeah. I think we all have that part of us that we don't like to hear criticism. Nobody just craves criticism. I think some people are able to bounce it off or allow it to bounce off them easier than others. I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten better at that. But I still, like I said, there are many times where I just hesitate to do things because of how people are going to perceive it. And that can be a big fear. And I think if you're out there today and that's you have this thing that you want to go after, but you're just afraid that, man, someone's going to judge it. Let me tell you, they are. There are people that are going to judge it. There are people that are going to criticize it. There's people that are going to say it's no good. But there's going to be just as many people that will tell you it was good. And you never know who it's going to impact or what it's going to impact. And, going back to this podcast, nobody's been more critical of every little thing than we have here in our office. But we've been amazed at the response that we've gotten from people who I haven't talked to in years. Some people that I never even met have thrown positive comments our way and how it helped them or how they were thinking about starting something and now they're going to do it. And so you don't really know who it's for or what it's going to do, but don't be afraid of criticism. There's always going to be haters. There's always going to be haters out there. So
just like the Taylor Swift song.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what I was thinking of, was Taylor Swift song. But what would you say are some of the key factors that have really contributed to your success? I think you've had quite a bit of success, especially for the amount of time you've been at it. And, I know you're not done, but what do you think are some of the key factors that have contributed toward you being successful in your field?
Sure. So two things come to mind. One, the curiosity that I mentioned earlier. I think that I am pretty good about having a question or having a certain skill set that I want to develop and just going after it. And I think that's really been an asset that has worked well in my favor. But secondly, and perhaps even more influentially, other people have just selflessly invested in me throughout my entire life, whether it's my parents, whether it's church people, like you mentioned. I've had a lot of youth pastors and people like that who have influenced me and just helped build up the confidence and character that I wanted to have in my business. And then even people on the academic side, professors and teachers who believed in me and prodded me to try harder, knew that there was more in me, and just pushed me past my limits to realize that I am capable of things I don't expect to do and don't expect to accomplish. So people have just been a huge, huge factor.
Excellent. I think that it's so important that you have people in your corner. And it goes back to talking about the haters. You got to surround yourself with the right people, because there are people in your corner that are on your team, that are on your side, and those are the voices you have to listen to. Those people that are going to bring you along. And it's hard to do anything all by yourself, but there's, I would say nobody that's had a measure of success would say they got there by themselves. Always had somebody to help lift them up and help get them to the next point. So speaking of success, like I said, it's an ongoing target. It's an ever-changing target. But at the end of it all, in your mind today, what does success look like to you?
So this is something that, even though I hadn't completely formulated it, I had a good idea of what it felt like at the age of 15. And it was a lot of what you said at the beginning of the podcast, to have time with my family, to be my own boss, and potentially to be able to be a stay-at-home mom and not have to rely on my income if needed. Yeah. So to kind of set myself up for success in the beginning. But to be my own boss, at the age of 15, I said, I am not working for anybody else, and I will make this work.
Yeah, definition of an entrepreneur. Somebody that would, they say an entrepreneur is someone that would 100 hours for themselves and 40 hours for anybody else.
That is so true.
Absolutely. So then, speaking of entrepreneur, what do you love most about being an entrepreneur?
Oh, the flexibility, the time. Absolutely. Yeah. I've thought multiple times about if, for instance, like I said, I was a subcontractor or am a subcontractor for MSU and U of M Flint, and I've considered, well, what if they offer me a job? And I would certainly very seriously consider it, but to sacrifice that flexibility of creating my own schedule and ultimately reporting to myself,
right.
I don't know if I would sacrifice that for the raise and benefits and whatnot. I don't know if I would.
No, I've been offered some pretty high-paying jobs since I started my company, and been recruited by a couple of companies that, 5 years ago, I probably would have jumped on the opportunity and certainly jumped on the paycheck. It's more than what I make today, but, there's just something that you can't trade for being able to have the time. It's not that I work less. I certainly don't work less. I probably work more than I ever have, but being able to work when I want to and be able to do the things that I again am passionate about. So what first step would you encourage somebody out there they're passionate about something, they want to start something, they want to try something new, they want to pursue some venture? What would be a good first step that you would encourage someone to take?
I was talking with someone about this yesterday, or a branch of this, and I think it's really important to identify a very specific goal, because if you're passionate about something, let's say photography for me. I'm passionate about photography. I could take that so many directions, and you don't have a clear way to get somewhere if you don't have a clear goal in the first place.
Sure.
And there are so many people in the world that can accomplish or have the same vision towards that goal, but to find your particular little area that you need to work towards, I just think you need to be specific. Like we say in B&I, specific is terrific. Yeah. And it seems cliche and it rhymes, so it seems even more cliche. But it's really important, and it helps you understand how to get from point A to point B, because if you don't understand point B, then how are you going to get there?
And I would agree that, and I would say once you find that specific thing, not just this general idea, but narrow it down to what you're going to do, and then write it down. Write it down and make sure that you stay focused on that.
I want to throw in a comment real quick. Yeah. I'm using this bullet point journal system right now to organize some of my goals, and there's a really effective, helpful way that I found, at least, in that it's called the in-between method, where you write down your point A of where are you right now and be honest with yourself, and then you write your point whatever Z of
Yeah.
where you want to get, and then you go halfway
Z.
in between. And what does halfway to that Z point look like?
Yeah.
Now, what does halfway between A and the middle look like? And what would you have to be doing there? Now, what would halfway between the middle to the end? And it is so interesting to really have to hash out what does halfway through the process and what does quarter the way through the process look like, because it creates some of those concrete details and theory that helps you understand.
Well, and taking on bite-sized goals. Sometimes
Yeah.
the whole task can seem overwhelming, but taking it one step at a time and really figuring out what those steps are, I think, is what gets people tripped up. I think people look at a task and they think, it's just too big for me. And so they never take the first step. And so I would just say take that first initial step and, take one day at a time. So on that note, then, what would you tell someone at the beginning? What would you tell them to avoid? Like, don't do this, especially in the beginning.
Well, I think we talked about earlier, listen to people's opinions more than the voice of your passion. Or even, especially, do not internalize negativity and don't let your internal voice be negative, because that can speak louder and more powerfully than anybody else's voice sometimes. If you create this internalized negativity that says, well, I'm not going to accomplish it anyways, or I'll never be as good as so-and-so, you're never going to succeed. That's going to fail right from the start.
I think if you're a listener to our podcast here, you've heard that over and over from multiple entrepreneurs as you got to learn to silence the haters. You got to learn to just don't hear it. Like I said, we are in a social digital media world where everybody has the ability to judge and critique. And I think it was Theodore Roosevelt that says it's not the man that loses that it should be judged. It's the man that's in the arena. The man that's getting dust on his face, and I know I'm butchering this quote, but, the man that's out there or the woman that's out there in the fight and they're in the battle, I mean, that's somebody worth admiring. And you're going to have failures along the way, and you're going to have setbacks, and you're going to have things that get in your way and make you feel like, man, I don't know if I'm cut out for this, or I don't know if I'm capable of this. But I'm telling you right now that if you can silence the hate around you, if you can silence people criticizing around you, take constructive critiquing. I like to call it constructive critiquing, not criticism, but take some criticism in and hear it, but don't let it affect you to the point where you start to doubt yourself. Be confident and true to yourself and what you know you can do, and keep moving forward. So Jordan, the last question I have for you is what is the best advice that you would give to someone out there? The best piece of advice you could give to someone that's out there, they have this idea, they have this passion, but they're in that point of fear. They're holding back. What's the best piece of advice you could give them?
I would say that we, at least most of us, have the opportunity of having people around them, like I said earlier, that encourage them and speak truth and life into them. I would say go to those people and start creating a support system and start asking. And like I mentioned, be willing to fail and be willing to create that risk and be authentic and be vulnerable and start expressing your passion. If you can't voice your passion because you're too afraid of hearing what people might say, then you're not going to pursue it.
Right.
So I think start voicing it with other people who are most likely already in your corner. And if they express some concerns, that's a really good place to maybe redirect yourself or get a clearer goal. Because if the people who care about you most have concerns, that should be really helpful to you, not bothersome. But more than likely, they're going to really think that whatever you're passionate about is a great idea.
Absolutely. Jordan, great words today. I hope those of you listening today have heard some of the things that Jordan has shared with you today along her journey. Here's somebody that's been in it and been doing it for a while and has had a measure of success and is still learning and is truly passionate about what they're doing. And the best thing you could do today, if you're listening to this, is to heed some of these words. If you're in this position, to hear what's being said and not dismiss it, but apply it to your own life. So, Jordan, thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you for asking me. This was a ton of fun.
Oh, good. I'm glad we had you, and I'm sure we'll have you on the show again. But for a second here, tell our audience where they can find out more about Jordan Noble and Be Noble Photography.
Sure. Thank you. So, like I said earlier, I'm lacking on the Instagram area, so we're working on that, but you can go to BeNoble_photo, and my Be Noble Photography page is on Instagram, as well as Facebook, Be Noble Photography, and my website is benoble.photography.
Okay. So make sure you visit Jordan if you need photography of any kind, really. I mean, I haven't seen a photo that she's taken that I didn't like. So if you need photography, reach out to her. I know she gets booked up quick, but I'm sure that if she can't help you, she has other people that can, and she can point you in the right direction. And I am certain that she will be of help to you. So I want to end our episode today by asking a couple questions. And first one is, what are you passionate about? What is it that you really have a passion for? Have you thought about it? Have you articulated it? Have you written it down? And then the next question is, are you pursuing that passion? What are you doing to go after? Are you closer towards that passion today than you were yesterday? In a week from now, will you be in the same spot you are today, or will you be a little bit closer, maybe even an inch closer, but are you moving towards it? I think in the modern digital world that we live in of the internet, you can literally make money doing just about anything. I mean, you could have a passion about the Ninja Turtles, and you could find a way online to make money doing Ninja Turtles, selling them on eBay, or doing videos about podcasts about them, videos on a YouTube channel. I don't know. People make money doing things that they're passionate about. So I would just say go after it. Even if other people around you maybe think it's silly or it's not something that they would do, prove them wrong. The only one that can prove them wrong is you. And so if you really think you have something and it's something that you really love and that you're really passionate about, then go after it. But first, write it down and then start to educate yourself. Don't just jump into it without any kind of idea of what's it going to take. Listen to a podcast. Follow somebody on YouTube that's done it and study what they've done. Learn the process. There's so many options out there of how to learn. Maybe take some college classes. Whatever it is you find is the best way that you learn. But educate yourself and find a way to do it. Someone who I follow a lot on social media is Gary Vaynerchuk. And he says, skills are cheap, but passion is priceless. I think if you will allow your passion to become your purpose, then one day I think it could become your profession. And so go after it. I guarantee you this, that most successful people that you know, probably every successful person that you know today, is not someone that's pursuing paychecks. They're probably someone that's pursuing passion. A successful person is somebody that's not just in it for the money. Money is great, don't get me wrong. And money will be a byproduct of something if you put the work in and you don't take the easy way out and you do those difficult things. But those successful people that you know, I can assure you they're pursuing their passion. So get out there today, pursue that passion, and get something done. Thank you for joining us today. As my mother always said, you can't and never could until you tried. Don't take the easy way out, my friends. I'll see you next time. Hey guys, if you like that video, be sure and give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel by clicking the link below. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram.